The crystal tumbler trembled slightly in Elijah Carter's hand, the ice cubes clinking softly as the jet dipped through another layer of turbulence. He took a slow sip of chilled water and glanced down at his wrist, the rose-gold Philippe timepiece winking under the overhead light. A personal gift to himself when Orion Systems crossed the billion-dollar valuation threshold the year before. He exhaled, calm on the surface, but beneath the composed exterior, a familiar storm churned. 3 hours into the non-stop flight from San Francisco to New York, and the first-class flight attendant had served every passenger but him. Elijah had noticed. He always noticed. After 3 decades in corporate America as a black executive, he developed an internal radar, an attunement to microaggressions, to the subtle erosion of dignity dressed up as policy or coincidence. This wasn't coincidence. He pressed the call button once more, the soft chime audible even above the gentle hum of the engines. The blonde attendant, Claire, according to her gold name tag, stood no more than 6 feet away, restocking cutlery and laughing at something the man in seat 1A had said. Moments later, she handed him a glass of Pinot and a plated entree, without so much as a glance toward Elijah. He cleared his throat slightly. "Excuse me," he said with the low, deliberate authority that had guided dozens of boardrooms through crises. Claire didn't flinch. She turned her head slightly, her lips curling into a rehearsed smile. "I'll be with you shortly, sir," she said, then leaned down to discuss wine pairings with the passenger in 1A, who had earlier introduced himself as Tom Whitmore, a hedge fund manager with a pedigree polished enough to make his presence in first class seem like birthright. Elijah Carter sat back, the tightness in his chest no longer ignorable. He turned his platinum wedding band, a calming habit from 26 years of marriage. Claire couldn't have known who he was. Not really. And yet, her dismissal wasn't just rude, it felt deliberate. She didn't know Elijah Carter was the founder and CEO of Orion Systems, the company that had revolutionized cybersecurity infrastructure across global finance and transportation. She didn't know he held contracts with the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, or that the call he was about to make would change the trajectory of this flight and every life connected to it. But that didn't matter, because it wasn't just about this flight. It was about everything that had led up to this moment. Every cold shoulder in a boardroom, every second glance at a country club, every time someone had assumed he was in the wrong place, in the wrong seat, with the wrong skin. It was about a moment long overdue. It was about justice, not in the abstract, but in the real. June 1991. East Chicago, Indiana. "You stay in them books, baby. That's your way out," his mother, Charlene Carter, said as she folded a faded waitress uniform over her arm. The collar was still damp from the dryer. Her hands, worn from decades of labor, bore small burns, calluses, and the unshakable tremor of early arthritis. 15-year-old Elijah sat at the kitchen table, his geometry textbook open beneath a swaying ceiling bulb. "I got my application in for that scholarship. Northwestern summer program. Ms. Jenkins says I've got a real chance." Charlene paused, her pride dimmed only by exhaustion. "That's Chicago, baby. That's far." Elijah nodded. "That's the point, Mama." The apartment was small, with thin walls and thicker memories. The distant echo of hip-hop from upstairs. The rattle of the aging fridge. The sound of boys outside playing a game where losing often meant more than just points. His father had been gone 6 years. Shot outside the steel mill on his way home from a double shift. Case closed in days. Wrong place. Wrong time. No leads. He'd been 9, and old enough to understand what wrong place really meant. Now, 31 years later, Elijah sat in first class, surrounded by luxury, yet still shadowed by the same ghost, an invisible wall that wealth could not breach. The plane began its descent into JFK. A younger male flight attendant, Marcus, approached. "Sir, we're preparing for landing. Please raise your tray." "Of course," Elijah said, adjusting the table and glancing at his watch. They'd be arriving 20 minutes ahead of schedule. That gave him just enough time to make the call. Across the aisle, Whitmore still sipped scotch, the same one Claire had refilled earlier. Catching Elijah's glance, he smiled genially. "New York for business?" he asked. "Yes," Elijah replied, not elaborating. "What field?" "Technology," Elijah said, then added, "I run Orion Systems." Whitmore blinked. "Wait, the Elijah Carter?" The Carter who created the LunaShield algorithm? We use your software in 3 of our international portfolios. Elijah nodded. We have a good team. You're being modest, Whitmore said. Listen, I'm dining at Blue Hill tonight with some partners. You should join us. Before Elijah could answer, Claire returned to collect glasses. She smiled at Whitmore, but didn't acknowledge Elijah. Claire, Whitmore said. Before you go, I want to commend you. Wonderful service today. Claire beamed. But, he added, I couldn't help but notice Mr. Carter here has yet to be served. He's pressed the call button several times. Claire stiffened. I must have missed it. We were very busy this evening. No misunderstanding, Elijah said. You saw me. Twice. You chose not to respond. Claire's expression cracked. Sir, I'm sorry if you felt. I didn't feel ignored, Elijah said. I was ignored. By now, other passengers had begun to listen. Claire muttered something and backed behind the curtain. Whitmore turned back to Elijah. Are you going to report her? Elijah took out his phone and turned off airplane mode. No, he said. I'm going to fix it. He scrolled to a name. Dialed. Desmond, it's Elijah. Flight 947. I want the entire crew held at the gate. Have HR and legal meet us there. Pause. Yes. All of them. Pause. This is bigger than bad service. I want eyes and documentation. He ended the call. Whitmore stared. Who was that? Desmond Lee, head of operations for JFK. We've worked together for 14 years. The wheels touched down. Elijah stayed seated, letting the plane slow to a taxi. The seatbelt sign turned off. You're not going to let this go, are you? Whitmore asked. No, Elijah said. Not this time. Because Claire Richardson wasn't just any flight attendant. And this wasn't just a case of neglect. Years ago, her testimony had helped send Elijah's childhood friend, Darren James, to prison. It wasn't a coincidence that Elijah was on this flight. He'd spent months tracing her, arranging to be on this exact route. And now, the reckoning would begin. At the gate, Desmond Lee stood flanked by legal and HR reps from American Aero. Captain Ray Nolan joined them, white-faced and tense. I understand there's an issue, the captain asked. Elijah nodded. I was ignored, singled out, dismissed. By a crew member who once swore under oath that she saw Darren James commit a robbery he didn't. She lied. He spent 15 years in prison before evidence proved he was innocent. Captain Nolan blinked. You're saying? I'm saying Claire Richardson recognized me. And retaliated. Claire stood behind the captain, her expression frozen. Do you recognize Mr. Carter? Desmond asked. Claire hesitated. No, not until just now. Are you saying, Elijah said, you didn't remember the courtroom in Cook County? The lineup photos? The moment you pointed at my best friend and said you'd never forget his face. Claire paled. She testified she was 100% sure. But she saw someone running at night. It was dark. The detective coached her, told her who to pick. Elijah turned to the room. Her words cost Darren his future. And today, she saw me and decided to punish me all over again. Claire whispered. I panicked. You chose silence, Elijah replied. Just like before. HR took notes. Legal asked questions. Claire denied intent. Elijah presented the trial transcript. Whitmore corroborated the behavior on the flight. Eventually, Desmond stood. Ms. Richardson, you'll be placed on immediate leave pending investigation. But you'll be contacted regarding the outcome. This meeting is concluded. Later that night, Elijah sat in his Manhattan apartment, drink in hand. His wife, Renee, a cardiac surgeon, watched him from across the room. How'd it go, she asked. She remembered me. And how did it feel? Disappointing, Elijah said. She wasn't a monster. Just small. Scared. But what she did, it wasn't small. She took something from Darren, Renee said. He wants to meet her. Renee blinked. Seriously? Next week. He's speaking at Columbia Law. And 1 week later, he did. In a quiet room on campus, Darren sat across from Claire, now dressed in civilian clothes, her badge surrendered. I'm not here for your apology, Darren said. I want the truth. Did you see me? Claire shook her head. I saw someone, but the detective told me it was you. I convinced myself it was. You said you were sure. I lied. Silence. Do you want forgiveness? He asked. I don't expect it. I'm offering you a choice. Come speak with my foundation. Help us change how eyewitness testimony works. Her voice shook. You want me to help? You've done damage, Darren said. Maybe it's time to do some good. She nodded. And 6 months later, she stood beside him at the Innocence Gala in New York, now part of the Redemption Foundation's training team. As Darren addressed a ballroom full of donors and survivors, Elijah stood to the side, watching. Justice hadn't come the way he expected, but it had come nonetheless. Not in the form of revenge, but in the shape of change.